young people these days, because of social media, have shorter attention spans.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's do it in 15-minute TED Talk power lecture styles. How you sell to patients, how you build rapport, how you market yourself, how you navigate social media. These are all going to be really key components for dental professionals of the future.
And what do you think the priority should be for a dental student doing that? And then also how not to go overboard with it, how to maintain that balance so that they don't get burnt out as well.
You don't have to network. It's not necessarily for everyone. This is not me saying it, but I genuinely heard a senior member within the dental industry refer to corporate groups as the arsehole of dentistry.
Should I go into a corporate? Should I go into kind of local associate?
I've been to jobs and I've walked in for the interview and I just not felt it.
What advice would you give to young professionals in maintaining that balance? Because you come across a very relaxed, chill guy. How do you maintain that persona?
It's the longevity as well. Like I said, we're nearly 20 years into dentistry. This isn't something that I click my fingers and all of a sudden, but it's also about knowing myself. We have to accept that we're all different, right? Maybe you guys are getting your kicks. You are feeling energized by the amount of effort and time that you're putting into work.
What would you recommend to students who want to access commercial opportunities during dental school?
I think
Today's guest, Joe Lovett, is a familiar face to many in dentistry. He's one of the most well-known, loved people in the industry, and for good reason. He's devoted to helping as many young professionals and students position themselves for success within the industry, and he's here to help you fast-track your future. From director at FMC, the company behind Dentistry.co.uk, being a judge at the Private Dentistry Awards, to starting his own company, now he's here to share the secrets about networking, getting your name out there, and accessing commercial opportunities as a young dentist or student. Stick around to find out more.
Hello, and welcome back to The Young Dentist, a platform where we ask the questions you, young dentists, want to ask the industry professionals. I'm Afif.
And I'm Fahim, and today we've got Joe Lovett with us. How are you, man?
I'm all good. Thank you very much for having me on today, gentlemen. I'm very impressed with the professional setup we got here.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah. I mean, only the best for you guys, man. But yeah, Joe, I wanted to say, you're very well known in the dental space, right? I mean, the first time we met was at the Manchester Undergraduate Research Conference, and then again at your event, Fast Tracking Your Future. Now, one thing that I was really kind of blown away by was the amount of value that was there in terms of the speakers, and in terms of kind of what was said. And I just wanted to ask you, what was your approach kind of connecting students to industry leaders, and what were you hoping to achieve or give back?
Well, it was multiple-fold, I would say. Firstly, just to give a little bit of a genesis of Fast Tracking Your Future, I started that program back during COVID. I saw all these people doing all these fascinating things online in terms of giving back to their communities and charitable donations. And I wanted to do something similar myself, but I had no idea what to do. So I was speaking to, I think, one of your other upcoming guests, Dr. Amit Patel, and one of the things he said to me was, you have a lot of knowledge that you take for granted that I think a lot of the young dental professionals, particularly out there, would be, beneficiaries of. So I launched this thing called Fast Tracking Your Future, and essentially what it was Zoom one-on-one calls where I would talk to them about the non-clinical side of their career. So things like how to navigate the job market, how to build their brand, how to potentially win awards, how to get themselves published, how to get themselves, more exposure on social media. And it just went stratospheric. So in that first, I think, when was lockdown? I'm trying to expunge the whole thing from my mind. May 2020, I spoke to 150 young dental professionals on Zoom. Honestly, by the end of it, I was so tired of my own voice. You find yourself saying a few things repetitively. So I was exhausted. I thought it was crazy. But what we did was we said, look, all I'm asking of you is if you get something tangible off the back of this Zoom call, please donate £20 to, that year was the NHS Frontline.
Oh.
And it went really, really well. And I ended up doing it each and every year. But then last November, we lost somebody, unfortunately, within the dental sector who was very close to my mum. And I just thought, right, let's do something bigger and bolder. Let's reach more people. And rather than me talking, why don't we pull together this litany of industry experts, not just necessarily clinical experts, but people from the business of dentistry as well. Those people that, whether you like them or you loathe them, they'd all had some level of success within dentistry, and I felt that they could impart with their wisdom. So once I had that in mind, I'm thinking about, right, how do the young generation, how do they engage? And I think it's true to say, and you guys can maybe correct me on this or not, but young people these days, because of social media, have shorter attention spans. So I was like, let's do it in 15-minute TED Talk power lecture styles, and we'll have different tracks within dentistry, so perio, implant, endo, and we'll have an industry expert come and talk about that different area. And I was so blessed, I was so fortunate that so many of the great and good within dentistry agreed to come on and speak that day. And we just got them together. I pulled together a promo poster, and then next thing you know, we're doing an event. And yeah, it was an absolutely great day.
I mean, as I say, the rest is history. That's awesome stuff, man. So you mentioned there briefly how the non-clinical aspects have certain things that young dentists need to be very aware of. But as we know, unfortunately, you're not taught that in school. So what examples can you give of those non-clinical aspects and how they're so important?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, because I think there are many dentists out there that you'll never hear of. They go into their practice, they do a phenomenal job, 9 to 5, they got great patient rapport, everything like that. They're brilliant clinicians. They go home, they forget about dentistry, and they live very happy, fulfilled lives. Brilliant. We need those people, but we never come across them because they never go to events. They never enter themselves for awards. We never see them on social media. But now I'm noticing this new wave of younger, more ambitious dentists who want to go above and beyond that clinical 9 to 5. So what does that look like, the above and beyond the clinical? Well, for the first and foremost, I think you have to be a good person, right? You have to be honest, decent, transparent, and authentic. I think those are really, really key components, because we do see a lot of BS going on online. And I think I'm a big believer that younger generations of people are going to be much more discerning when it comes to LinkedIn profiles, Instagram nonsense. You guys are going to be able to see through that a lot more. So I think those are really key components. And then other things that I think are really, really important is being a good networker as well. You guys are absolutely fantastic networkers. Only in the infancy of your dental kind of careers. Already I see you at shows. And it's not just necessarily the physical shows as well. You are grafting online, networking, put your profiles out there, reaching out to people. And I think you're going to see a great deal of success off the back of it. So yeah, authenticity, networking, building yourself as a brand, more and more important than ever before. I'm a believer that as somebody who brings new tech from other markets into the UK dental market, that we're going to see dentistry, certainly in some areas of general dentistry, the technology is going to level the playing field. So it's really, really important that you focus on the other softer things, like how you sell to patients, how you build rapport, how you market yourself, how you navigate social media. These are all going to be really key components for dental professionals of the future.
First and foremost, thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it.
That's right.
Yeah. What you touched on there, I think, is really important, because me, myself, being in dental school, I kind of look around at kind of my peers, and everyone's really crafting hard with their exams and inside dental school. But a lot of the kind of things that I hear from dentists who have already kind of graduated and things is that it is those soft skills that they need to learn. So what do you think? So you mentioned networking, right? Could you go into kind of more detail into what do you think the priority should be for a dental student doing that? And then also how not to go overboard with it, how to maintain that balance so that they don't get burnt out as well.
Sure. And again, to reiterate, you don't have to network. It's not necessarily for everyone, and I get that. I think there's more now than ever in the dental calendar, if you look at it, it's absolutely packed. There are events on every week, whether it be locally or regionally. And there's something in there for you. And, there are more and more niche associations. And I do find that, take, for example, the BACD, not to pick out any particular favourites or anything like that. When I look at the people that are involved with that association, they always seem to have opportunities when it comes to looking for jobs because of the network that they've built through that particular association. They seem to have an increased level of fulfillment because they're doing stuff above and beyond their every day-to-day clinical. And also, they seem to have a lot more fun as well. They've got a bigger network of friends. They go to more social events and things like that. So, yeah, I think that's really important.
Now, before we continue, I want to take a minute to thank our sponsor, Colgate, for making this podcast possible. Colgate is on a mission to support the next generation of dental professionals as they transition from dental school to practice. And they aim to do this through the Colgate Student app. Now, the Colgate Student app is a completely free to use one-stop shop for all dental student education. It contains bite-sized educational content and clips to teach you the skills that you might not have learned in dental school, but that you'll need in real-life practice. The app contains 4 main sections: clinical practice, practice management, having fun, and doing good. It's super easy to use and has something for everyone, no matter which stage in your journey you're at. Now, students and young dentists ask me all the time, Fahim, how do you know what events are happening next? Well, within the student app, there's a specific events section containing exclusive student events, both in person and online, across the country, so you can network your way into those amazing opportunities. All of the content in the app is created by credible sources from across the globe, including the UK's very own University of Manchester, ensuring you have access to world-class support throughout your journey as a young dental professional. Click the link in the description to download the Colgate Student app today. And now, back to the episode.
Interesting stuff, Diego. So you mentioned there briefly how you're a consultant of sorts and you bring lots of technologies into the UK market. Can you tell us a little bit more about your involvement in that regard?
Yes, it's a good question. So when I first started Catalyst 6 years ago, I think with many businesses, how it starts initially is not how it ends up. So I had this view that everything was going to become increasingly more digital. And I was right in some respects, but in other respects, I was wrong. I really thought that many of the sales reps that we see for manufacturing company and wholesale companies with dentistry, I thought they would become dinosaurs. Because as we see, increase in e-commerce, companies and practices would be ordering a lot more online. So what I wanted to do when I left my previous role was be almost like a sales gun for hire. So I say, I'll do what that rep did for you, but I'll do it at a significantly reduced cost and have a broader network. And I would do that for multiple companies.
Right.
But then things evolved and you get talking. And when you go to these shows, your name comes up and people will say, oh, listen, you're looking to achieve that. You speak to Joe, he's a pretty connected guy. He can help you achieve those objectives. And what happened was I was finding that there were a lot of companies looking to make a stepping stone into the UK, particularly as it's a great way to get exposure to the rest of Europe. But they didn't necessarily know the best way about going about things. So it's like, if you've got a new tech, you're coming from the US, where do you even start? How do you bring that to the masses? How do you educate the widest possible audience of dental professionals? So I started working more closely with those types of companies. What are your aims? What are your objectives? And how do we get you from point A to B as quickly, efficiently, and cost effectively as possible?
100%. And one of the key things that you mentioned there was helping the company get from A to B and kind of almost being in the middle, bridging that gap, right? And nowadays, I see increasingly a lot of dental students and a lot of kind of professionals and stuff have side hustles and things that they try and run businesses on the side. And I do think that's a key component in that regard as well. Is there anything that you can say to any dental students or anyone who's looking to kind of get into any sort of business venture or side hustle? What would your advice be in regards to that?
It's great. I know I'd recommend it, and I'm noticing it happen. I've been in dentistry nearly 20 years. It used to be people who kind of my age who were saying, I'm looking to do something maybe on the side, reduce my clinical days, a change is as good as a rest throughout the week, and whether that involved working with dental companies or launching their own events or courses. What advice I would give? I would say, A, go for it. B, be sure to network, learn from others that have done it in the past. And C, it doesn't necessarily need to be completely dental related. Sometimes if you've got a hobby or something that you're particularly passionate about, and you can find a way to monetize it, my lord, go for it. Go for it. I think, it's if you can do that, that's absolutely gold dust.
I see that's very interesting. You're saying you gotta find a balance between clinical studies and dental school alongside the ventures. So you mentioned there how you work across dental groups, right? How has that landscape changed over the past 20 years, especially with the advent of private equity? How has that landscape evolved?
So, just strictly in terms of numbers, when I first started in dentistry, however many years ago, corporate groups accounted for 8% of the market, and quite honestly had a pretty bad reputation. It was like, oh, you don't want to go and work for the corporates. And this is not me saying it, but I genuinely heard a senior member within the dental industry refer to corporate groups as the arsehole of dentistry. Their words, not mine, I hasten to add. But now, if you look at it, I think the most recent figures that we're seeing is corporate groups account for about 30% of the market. And all of these guys are looking to acquire more practices. I mean, look at Demira just the other day, seven new practices. These guys are acquiring all the time. And I think it's really important for young dentists to realize that, is because at some point during your career, you will probably find yourself working at a Bupa or a My Dentist, a Portman, but it's not the same proposition that it used to be. As the level of competition amongst them has increased, because there are more corporate groups and there are corporate groups with more practices, they are competing with one another. They're competing for patients, they're competing for staff, and they're also competing for other things like awards and brands and things like that. So we're seeing more and more competition between that group. So they are actually having to invest in their own development. So it's no longer a case of this is the arsehole of dentistry. These people are taking young dentists and dental hygienists and therapists, and they are nurturing them and developing them. And in a lot of places, you will find that you can have a definitive career structure, say, okay, this is what year 1, 2 looks like. But if you want to do implants, then we're going to help you facilitate getting you on a really great course, a postgraduate course. And I think for a lot of people, now the corporate groups are a lot more appealing because you can see a definitive career structure and definitive growth that they're going to be investing in you a lot more. So yeah, that landscape is changing and it's only going one way. I don't suspect it will plateau until we get to around about 50% market share.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think a lot of young dentists or new graduates, right, just coming out of FD year, whatever, and they're having to make that choice now. They've seen all these corporate groups, or do we want to go into associate practice at a local practice, or what would you say to them to kind of help them make that decision? Should I go into a corporate? Should I go into kind of local associate, or what?
Well, I think at this point, it's really important that I reiterate that I'm not a clinician. I've never been a dentist. I've never worked in practice. I can only go on, I speak to 150 young dentists a year, so I only can go on what I've been told and my experiences, conversations. Pick the best fit for you, the one that aligns with your philosophies, the one where you feel like you're going to get the best mentoring, the one that's going to help you build a career, develop your skills, that's going to invest in you. And a lot of the time it's about a right feeling. I've been to jobs and I've walked in for the interview, I just not felt it. I think you guys will probably find the same. I mean, Afif, when you were looking around universities, a lot of it's on gut instinct, right?
And they click sometimes, right?
Yeah, you feel it. I remember my first company that I worked in dentistry, walking into FMC. I was like, I see myself here. Instantly, within the first minute, I was like, I can see myself here. I can envision myself enjoying working here. And I remember my first interview. I never get nervous in interviews because I see interviews as just establishing a fit. But I was a little bit nervous because I felt the pressure of like, I really want to be here. So more than anything, it's about trusting your instincts, I think.
I see. Very interesting. And you mentioned the FMC, so take us back to those days, all those years ago. How was it like, working for them, and how do you think they develop you as a person?
Let me tell you honestly, we, in the first few years, were feral. It was absolutely wild. No exaggeration. I was drunk for like 30% of the time. I loved it. I absolutely loved it because there were so many. I'm not advocating drinking here, by the way. And particularly not at work. But we had so many awards, so many events, so many international trips. I was traveling, I was away. It was an absolute roller coaster. And at that time, we were all young, hungry, ambitious. It was just a really fun company to be involved with. As my career progressed, you couldn't get away with jerking around as much as perhaps you used to, and I think I hit a point in my life. It was like, okay, am I going to be the guy who's messing around the whole time, playing prank stuff, or do I actually want for more here? And it's at that point I think I had to mature, rein it in a little bit. There was still time for the odd little bit of ratbaggery. Don't get me wrong, but by and large, I had a great time there. Learned so much, and I think the great thing about that job was, because I was engaging with companies through meetings and events and things like that, but also dentists as well, I got to build this really, really expansive network of people that you got to meet. And then a lot of times you were in social kind of situations with them as well. And so you develop even deeper relationships. And I think, that laid the groundwork for the things that I'm doing and loving today.
Wow, awesome. So it's a clean instrumental part of your evolution development to where you are.
Without question, yeah.
Awesome stuff. And Joe, you mentioned there how, you always partying before, now you become a bit more serious and more dedicated, right? So how is your work-life balance, and what advice would you give to young professionals in maintaining that balance? Because you come across a very relaxed, chill guy. How do you maintain that persona?
Put me on the spot there, Afif. I still party. Don't get me wrong. Just there's a time, a professional arena in which to do it. I mean, I'll turn 40 in a couple of weeks' time, and we're having a big house party. So no, don't get me wrong. The partying is still going on. It's just more of a time and a place. Work-life balance is really, really important for me. And I'm very fortunate in that I've been able to build something and form something that enables me to have time to meet a friend for lunch, or do my high rocks training, or go out for dinner or whatever, or take my granddad out. And I appreciate that is not always possible for everybody. This has taken time, for me to develop my skills and my network in which I can form something that suits me. But also, it's the longevity as well. Like I said, we're nearly 20 years into dentistry. This isn't something that I clip my fingers and all of a sudden. But it's also about knowing myself. How do I want to work? How do I want to live? How do I want to structure that balance as well? So it's about knowing yourself as much as anything. So would you say that it's more so towards each person's different in terms of their needs and how much kind of effort they can give towards their work and kind of their life? What would you say to there's students and there's also kind of graduates who kind of adopt the hustle culture, who 7 days a week, as every single waking hour they're working, right? What do you think the implications of that might be, and do you think that it's suited for some people, just not other people, or What do you think?
It's interesting, and I've thought a lot about it recently. And I know you had Surab on recently, and we post your podcast with him. Him and I had a bit of a conversation, and I know you're going to have Amit on later today, who's another great guy. And him and I have had the same conversation. Look, it's different strokes for different folks, and I've had this conversation, particularly actually, funnily enough, about you guys. It's like there's part of me that's like, you guys work so hard, and you are part of that hustle culture, that it does concern me. It's like, are they finding time to have fun? Are they finding time to spend it with their loved ones? You know, are you potentially at the risk of burnout? But I also think at the same time, we have to accept that we're all different, right? Maybe you guys are getting your kicks. You are feeling energized by the amount of effort and time that you're putting into work. And it's not for somebody like me to come in here and say, oh, you should be out there, you know, chasing girls, getting drunk, go party, go Ibiza and stuff like that. Because maybe what was for me isn't necessarily for you. So I think it's all about having a level of personal maturity, right? And knowing what works for you. Am I happy? Am I energized? Am I getting enough sleep? You know, am I sleeping at night?
Yeah.
Full stop. And it's just about taking care of yourself. So I don't want to be too prescriptive and say, oh, yeah, you know, you're spending too much time on LinkedIn, a thief, or Fahim, stop going to so many events, you know, play more PlayStation, chase more girls. No. I don't think, you know, it's patronizing to be like that. You know yourselves.
Yeah. So, Joe, you mentioned earlier how, you know, there's something for everyone, right? Some people are more go-getters, right? What would you recommend to students who want to access commercial opportunities during dental school?
Okay, I think there is a formula for this,
Really?
genuinely. And I think a great catalyst, pardon the pun, for this is actually writing and getting yourself out there via the media. So if you've got, and it doesn't necessarily have to be clinical, if you've got something that you have an opinion on, a thought piece, or an experience that you would like to share, or something that you feel is underspoken about within dentistry, write about it. There is so much dental media out there. There are obviously publications like Dentistry, The Dentist, The Probe, but there's also platforms like dentistry.co.uk. And what I've noticed with a lot of people, how they start their kind of commercial opportunity journey is they write articles. It gets put on dentistry.co.uk or some other dental platform. It gets shared. It has goes a little mini viral amongst their friends, and it spreads a little bit further. And then things happen, like people with other podcasts will reach out and say, hey, would you like to join on? Then somebody might invite you to be on their table. And I find that often these things, really great way of getting started, but they tend to snowball. And then once you developed a bit of a voice, a bit of a platform, that's when the companies start reaching out to you.
Yeah.
So take, for example, somebody like Dr. Yuande Odewole. She did a lot of media work very, very early on in her dental life, right? So she was already a student, and she was YouTubing, she was Instagramming, and she's not talking about anything out of pocket. She's only talking about her own experiences, trying to pave a way, make it easier for the next generation of dentists coming through. But by the time she'd already finished, she already had a voice, she already had a platform, she already had a following. Companies are reaching out. Companies that want to engage with students, they love you one day because people resonate with her journey as well. So yes, she already has a number of commercial affiliations.
Yeah.
So yeah, publishing is a great way of starting, I would say.
Okay, so once again, it links back to social media, so establishing that presence in any way possible, and then the rest almost follows as a consequence, right? I see. So Joe, I'd like to ask you, this is a question we ask all our podcast guests. What does success look like to you?
Do you know what? I was actually asked this question before. A funny one, actually. So I help out, do a little bit of work supporting the Black Dental Network. And they invited me along as a panelist to their first event. And somebody asked me there, what does success look like to you? And I was like, sweating, because here's me. Let's be honest, I didn't work that hard in school or whatever, and I'm facing a room full of successful, highly successful black clinicians who have all worked their butt up to get into dental school and then to have success above and beyond. And I'm thinking, who am I to tell these people? But I don't think there's any right answer for this question, because success is so personal to you. What I might think is success, a degree of success, might not be the same for you, Fahim, or you, Afif. Like, you might think, oh, I want that Patek Philippe watch. That, when I get that, that's a success. But for other people, it might be building a better relationship with a member of their family, or being able to go and have that adventure that they'd always dreamed of. Success is not necessarily a financial thing, and I think we're moving further and further away from that. Success might be being able to sleep well at night, feeling good about yourself, accomplishing a health or fitness goal. There are so many different degrees of success, and I think it's such a personalized thing that you just need to, again, have that maturity to think, okay, what do I deem success, and how am I going to achieve it?
It's a lot of introspection and really understanding who you are as a person before you can go and strive towards a certain goal.
But that comes with time.
Yeah.
That comes with time. I felt in myself, I wasn't the man that I was going to be until I was 28, 29. I know I appreciate a lot of people will mature quicker. But in terms of my wants, my needs, my politics and stuff like that, that took a long time to develop, and it's still evolving over time. So as you change over time, your desires, your wants, your objectives change over time as well. So therefore, what you deem success changes as well.
Following on from that, having spoken to so many clinicians, so many dentists, so many dental professionals in the industry, what do you think the sentiment is regarding that? So have you spoken to anyone who their goals have changed? Maybe they've had a family, maybe they've grown up and matured. What would you say to young dentists who are chasing their goals in terms of the long term? What would you advise them if you wanted to look into the camera?
Go for it. Work hard. If it's a long-term goal, go for it now. And if something changes, you would change, adapt, flexibility. But be strong, work hard, keep that mental resilience, keep going for the goal. And if you develop in a way in which that no longer becomes the long-term goal, do something else.
Wise words there from the man himself. Thank you very much, Joe. It's been a pleasure having you on.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. Always pleasure seeing you, and thank you so much for having me on today.
Always, man. Thank you for coming.
Take care.